Greetings. Just waiting for folks to join us. I see a couple of folks on YouTube. Greetings. Thanks for joining. Good to see you. So for this show today, I have exactly 1 hour, 59 minutes, because at 12 noon, I have to go to a meeting at work. So I'm going to try to keep my usually pretty long-winded self brief so that I will not be got at work doing revolutionary shit on the clock, because I'm sure that would be a problem. So, gonna get started in just a few minutes. Waiting for folks to join us. I see people on my Facebook. Hi, y'all. Hi. I see people on the APRP New Mexico Facebook. Greetings. I see people on our YouTube. We never get the Twitter viewer count until after the fact. It's very sad. But we're on Twitter as well, thanks to the magic of internet technologies and the startup Restream, which we highly recommend. If you ever wondered how we do this show, it is a combination of open broadcast software, which is free and lets you do cool things like this overlay. Free. We just made it in Canva and then put it in OBS. And then hi Andrew. And then to put it on the internet where y'all can see it, we use Restream.io, which allows us to stream to Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter at the same time. We could also theoretically do Instagram at the same time, but we'd have to pay extra. So one day we're going to go live on Instagram, and probably only Instagram, and see how many folks we get there. Anyway, waiting for folks to join. I see folks trickling in. I can get started in just a few minutes. This is Weekly Pan-African News Live, the show that All African People's Revolutionary Party New Mexico show does every single Thursday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. We've been doing it for since the pandemic started, because we realized that we were not going to be able to do in-person events safely, but we still needed to build with y'all, build up our base, get our line out there, and so we decided to start doing this show. And it's been pretty cool. We've learned a lot of skills. We've taken turns hosting. So, pretty proud of this little thing we're doing, and grateful that y'all tune in and watch with us. Listen to us rant. Build with us every week. I'll probably give it one more minute, and then I'll get started. If you're watching, please share the stream. Help us get more eyes. I just made the post on my page public, so share it and help us get more eyes on this program. We want to give y'all news and analysis from a revolutionary Pan-African perspective, because you know for a fact you're not going to get that on CNN. You're not going to get that on MSNBC. You're just going to get a bunch of racist liberal bullshit. And so we created our own platform, and we need your help to get it out there as we continue to build it and do this every week. So please, if you're watching, share the post. Help us get in front of more eyes. Okay, like I said, I have to be at work in 55 minutes, so let's get it poppin'. Let's get started. My name is Onyesanwu. I am an organizer with All African People's Revolutionary Party, specifically in the New Mexico chapter that is organizing on occupied Tiwa territory. This is Tiwa territory, also known as Albuquerque, but this is still Tiwa land. And so if we have anything to do with it, the indigenous nations of the Western Hemisphere are getting their land back, just like our people, African people, are getting Africa back. And so we always want to start off the show by saying we are the APRP, and we acknowledge this is occupied indigenous land, specifically Tiwa land. This show is Weekly Pan-African News Live. It is a show that we do every single Thursday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, where we give you news, analysis, updates about this raggedy pandemic from a revolutionary Pan-African perspective. We are a revolutionary Pan-African socialist mass party based in Africa, founded 52 years ago by Kwame Nkrumah, chapters all over the world, obviously here in the United States, here in New Mexico, California, Oregon, New York, Maryland, Illinois, all over. in Europe, in Canada, in all over Africa. We are a revolutionary Pan-African Socialist Party that is global, that is transnational. And this is our weekly show. We always want to start off the show by calling in an ancestor because we understand that we are not like babes out in the woods doing this on our own with no one coming before or after us. That is absolutely not the case. The only reason I'm here speaking to you today, the only reason APRP exists, is because of 500 plus years of continuous struggle on the part of our ancestors, on the part of the masses of African people. And so we understand that the only reason the APRP exists, the only reason I'm here speaking to you is because of our ancestors. We only know how to do this work because of their example, and so we always want to acknowledge them and call them in. The ancestor I want to call in today is Madam Octavia Butler. Octavia Butler. Her birthday was this past Monday. She was a prolific African sci-fi writer who is most famous for books like the Parable of the Sower series, the Earthseed series, the Kindred series. She injected revolutionary African liberatory analysis into science fiction. She created a whole motherfucking genre. Wow. Out the gate already with the potty mouth. I apologize. I'm gonna try to do better, but I'm making promises. But she was also widely considered to be a prophet. And the reason for that is because the Parable of the Sower series specifically, like decades ago, seems to predict the time we're going through right now. There's like a Trump-like figure. There's like a rising global right-wing movement. There's like all sorts of cataclysms, climate change, vast amounts of disease, and basically like a world on the precipice of something that feels very terrible. And so because it's so close to what's happening right now, a lot of people believe Octavia Butler was a prophet. But if you listen to what she herself said about how she was able to make those so-called predictions, she said that all she really did was like look at all the problems and contradictions that exist in the world right now, or in the world as she saw it at the time when she was writing the books, and imagine if they were ignored and nothing was done to correct them, and they just got worse. So that's what she said the Parable series was her just like extrapolating based on current events as she saw them and assuming that nothing was done to address that and just assuming they were going to get worse. So really all she was, rather than a prophet, was a historical materialist. She was someone who was able to look at history, look at current events, and be like, this is not going to get better unless we do something about it. And she wrote that down. And she made extremely accurate predictions because she was extremely talented at analyzing what was wrong with society. So we want to shout out to her. We want to shout out to the entire African sci-fi tradition, the entire Afrofuturist tradition. And we are deeply grateful for all the many artists and writers and cultural workers like Octavia Butler who produce the kind of stories and cultural works that we need to continue to struggle forward and also to look at our situation clearly. So shout out to Octavia Butler. This show is dedicated to you. You're the ancestor we're calling in today. That was 4 minutes, 4-minute intro. It's supposed to be 5 minutes. I'm doing good. So every single show, and really like every single All-African People's Revolutionary Party event that you will ever attend always has an element of political education. When I say political education, I mean straight up consciousness raising y'all. I mean presenting and developing an analysis of our conditions based on our history, based on how capitalism functions, based on our understanding of our enemy. We always want to open with political education because our people are not going to be capable of ending what is being done to us and destroying the enemy that's attacking us, capitalism and imperialism, unless we have a clear understanding of how we got here and why. And so that is the purpose of political education, to develop an analysis, to raise consciousness. Like that's the first step. As Malcolm X said, you cannot organize a sleeping people. You have to wake them up first. The waking up happens with political education, and then you can get some action. So every single time you come to an APRP event, we're all going to do PE, political education, and this show is no exception. So the topic that we want to talk about today is the topic of internationalizing the Black Lives Matter movement. So what do I mean by that? The simplest way I can put it is that the Black Lives Matter movement for Black lives, the current resurgence of the African liberation movement that we are living through at this moment, whatever you want to refer to it as, has a focus of domestic police terrorism and domestic systemic racism. And this is completely reasonable because we are living in a racist ass imperialist capitalist settler state, which was founded upon our enslavement and the genocide and theft of indigenous people's land, and which has been racist from its inception, which has exploited us from its inception. And so this movement is just saying, y'all have not stopped this. We're tired of this. We get shot down the street like animals. We get systematically denied access to safety, housing, healthcare, jobs. We are an oppressed and underdeveloped segment of the population, and we always have been. And so we are tired of this shit, and we're rising up. So that's like completely valid. That's just facts. It makes complete sense that African people on this land would be continuously organizing and resisting those conditions. And so absolutely unite with the demands of the current movement for African liberation that is bubbling up on this land. But also, it's extremely important to understand that what happens to African people in the U.S. is directly mirrored by what the U.S. and the entire Western world is doing to African people on the continent and all around the globe. Easiest way to put it is that the U.S. police, the police in the United States, are an occupying force domestically, and the U.S. military is an occupying force across the world. What the police do to us here on this occupied indigenous land on Turtle Island is precisely what the U.S. military does to us in Africa and all over Central and South America and all over the Caribbean. I will give you an example. You probably, maybe if you've watched the show before, you've heard of AFRICOM, which stands for U.S. African Command. But maybe if you're not a person who pays attention to news about Africa, you've never heard that term before. So I will talk a little bit about AFRICOM, what AFRICOM is. AFRICOM is basically the U.S. military invading and occupying land on the African continent. And already out the gate, when I say invading and occupying, you know that is not a peaceful project. So what is AFRICOM doing? AFRICOM has thousands and thousands of U.S. military troops, like boots on the ground, soldiers in African nations all over the continent. AFRICOM has a drone base in Somalia, where they are engaging in drone warfare, straight up shooting people from the sky in all of the surrounding nations in East Africa and increasingly in West Africa. The same way that you hear about drones murdering like wedding parties, families, children in the Middle East, in Afghanistan, the exact same thing is happening in Africa, except we can't even get a story on the news. We can't even get consistent attention paid to this. AFRICOM will murder, like, it was like a grandpa, the last time I read, a grandpa and a 15-year-old kid murdered from the sky, just minding their business, and AFRICOM was like, those were terrorists. Those were terrorists. And then after the fact, when the people on the ground are like, no, they weren't. That was like some dude and his son. They were like, well, you know, mistakes happen, collateral damage. And it's just like kind of brushed away. And this is like just one example of AFRICOM just like straight up murdering civilians, like drone warfare in Africa, straight up murdering civilians. But you never, ever, ever hear about it with the same outrage that you hear about drone strikes in Afghanistan or in Iraq. So this is like an example of like the invisibility of U.S. hot warfare, like armed engagement on the African continent. It is just out of sight, out of mind when it comes to folks dealing with that. And so when we see like this resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, or whatever you want to call it, because some folks object to calling it Black Lives Matter, which I completely understand. Black Lives Matter as an organization has many contradictions that need to be addressed. But when it comes to like this current iteration of the domestic wave of the African liberation movement, we have a responsibility as African people, as African radicals, as African revolutionaries, to make these international connections, to say what the United States is doing to us is directly connected to what the United States is doing to our people, the same motherfucking people all over the world. Another example of the U.S. military and the U.S. government not giving a single shit about African lives and not happening in with like a veil of invisibility is the U.S.'s relationship to Haiti. I talk about this quite often because, as I've said many times, what that Africans in Haiti accomplished with the Haitian Revolution drastically changed the conditions for the better of African people all over the Western Hemisphere. It is not an exaggeration to say that if you are a person of African descent in the Western Hemisphere, regardless of where you were born, that you owe Haiti a debt. Point blank, period. The global slave trade would not have ended without the resistance of African people, and the global slave trade would not have ended without the victory of the Haitian Revolution. And so we all owe Haiti a debt. But really what that's looked like in practice is that the U.S. has systematically underdeveloped Haiti, has looted from Haiti, has occupied Haiti. They occupied Haiti for 15 years and killed millions of people, has sanctioned Haiti whenever Haiti has tried to elect a Democrat, even like a soft democratic socialist government, has basically like openly fucked with Haiti for decades, like ever since Haiti committed the crime of trying to be free. And so this has continued through presidents, through the Clinton administration, through the Obama administration, through the Bush administration. This has continued. And right now we're seeing a situation in Haiti where there is a U.S.-backed dictator. The U.S. overthrew a democratically elected democratic socialist president and replaced him, that president was Aristide, replaced Aristide with a puppet, with a neocolonial puppet who allows U.S.-backed mercenaries, U.S.-funded mercenaries, U.S.-trained police and military to terrorize the people of Haiti. To terrorize the people of Haiti on a daily basis. The people of Haiti rise up continuously because that's what Haiti does. Haiti never accepts any kind of subjugation. Haiti is like, we won a revolution one time, we're going to do it again. There's not a shit thing you can do about it. And in response, this neocolonial puppet, this U.S.-backed dictator, 6 these U.S. trained troops and military and U.S. mercenaries onto this population that is only trying to rise up and improve their conditions. Haiti is like just off the coast of the U.S. and Haiti has been a consistent target of U.S. imperialist intervention for a century at this point. So that is another example. Another example of how the same disregard, the same exploitation, the same oppression that is visited upon African people within U.S. borders is visited upon African people outside U.S. borders is where my family is from. My father's from Haiti. My mother lives in Honduras. Honduras, it has, believe it or not, an African population just like every other place in Central America, because when the transatlantic slave trade was going on, the majority of Africans in this hemisphere were brought to Central and South America, and so Honduras is an African population. Honduras is also another nation that when they attempted to democratically elect a president who was going to put the people first, who was going to nationalize national resources, who was going to make sure that the masses of African, indigenous, and poor people in that country had a say in how the country was run, the U.S. was like, we don't want that. We just want free access to resources and exploitable labor, so they overthrew him, couped his ass under Obama with Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State. And then they replaced him once again with a U.S.-backed dictator, and then that U.S.-backed dictator brought back death squads to Honduras, brought back roving militias that went door to door and murdered indigenous activists, murdered reporters, murdered queer and trans people, murdered African people. And when it became clear that this was happening, there was tremendous pressure put upon the U.S. government to stop giving military aid to Honduras, to stop training these militias that were murdering people door to door. And what did the U.S. government do? Once again, under the Democratic Obama administration, once again, under the so-called lesser evil Hillary Clinton, the U.S. continued to funnel millions of dollars in funding and millions of dollars in training to these straight-up death squads. The Honduran military that is murdering African people, that is murdering my people, Garifuna people, for defending our land, is funded and trained by the U.S. government. So just like these motherfucking pigs that shoot down our people in the street, that kneel on people's necks, that fucking flash bomb little girls in their beds are terrorizing us in this land, the same motherfucking entity that is funding and training those police is doing the same thing to police and military all over the world that are terrorizing African people. I gave you 3 examples. I gave you AFRICOM, I gave you Haiti, I gave you Honduras, but I promise you that's not the end. I promise you that is not the end. The U.S. is a force for evil. The U.S. is a force that massacres, exploits, and oppresses African people wherever we are found in the world. So any movement for African liberation on this land has a responsibility to make those international connections. It has a responsibility to say we will not accept you doing this to African people anywhere. Make those connections. Make those connections and demand that it stops. African people are not a minority on this planet. African people are the fastest growing population on the face of the globe. The African continent has the youngest and fastest growing labor force on the face of the planet. And not that very long at all, African people are going to be a majority of the world's population, which I am sure there is like a rich European man in the room like flipping out somewhere about that on a daily basis. But the fact of the matter is that if African people unite our struggles across borders, if we refuse to accept the colonial borders created by imperialist powers and instead say that we are the same people, that we are facing the same things, that we have the same enemy, if we unite on that basis and organize on that basis, there is no force on earth that is going to be able to stop us. There is no force on earth that will be able to stop the train of African liberation if we begin to make those domestic and international connections of our struggle. If we begin to say that what is done to us in Africa, we will fight just as hard to stop as what is done to us here. So hold on, how long was that? I think it was 18 minutes. I'm trying to keep it tight so I can go to work. But yeah, that's basically like the gist of it, right? Is that we do not want a singular focus on domestic terrorism against African people. It is important to lift that up. It's important to name it. It's important to organize against it, but we cannot stop there. We must make those international connections. We must make those connections across the diaspora and across the continent if we want this to stop once and for all. We must understand that what the U.S. does to us abroad is directly connected to what's happening to us here. Make those connections, build that transnational African movement, unite the diaspora and the continent, and no one will be able to stop us. That right there is why the All-African People's Revolutionary Party is an international, transnational, pan-African mass organization. Because we understand very clearly that the reason we are catching hell all over the world is because this system requires our land and our labor to function. This system could not function without the exploitation of Africa. That is the reason why the U.S. military is fucking putting their dirty ass, their raggedy ass military bases all over our home. Because the U.S. military, the U.S. economy, the global capitalist economy could not function without the exploitation of Africa. Could not function without stealing from us, without exploiting us. The moment we realize that, the moment we fight for Africa as a united people, the moment we take Africa from the claws of capitalism and imperialism, is the moment those systems fall for good and the moment our people are free for good. So that, in a nutshell, is why we, the All-African People's Revolutionary Party, believe that the masses of African people fighting against police terrorism in the United States must connect that struggle to what the U.S. military and what U.S. imperialism is doing in Africa. Once we do that, it is a wrap. Once we make that connection, once we build that movement, it is a wrap for this system. We will shut down Africa, just like Erica's saying in the comments. Shout out to Black Alliance for Peace. Shout out to Black Hammer for always advancing this line. For those of us in the African left, we have to keep making this connection consistently. We have to say what's happening to us here is directly connected to what's happening to us in Africa. And if Africa is free, we're going to be free. So shout out to the folks making those connections. Shout out to the organizations making those connections. Sometimes it feels like we're like a couple of voices in like a very vast forest of shit analysis, to be honest. But the reality of the situation is that we are correct, and more people are realizing that every day. And the moment we have a critical mass of our people understanding that we need to build a transnational movement for African liberation that targets U.S. imperialism, we will be cooking with gas. I just gave y'all like an old-timey saying because I like it. But that has been the PE section. I gotta keep it moving because I gotta go to work after this. Deeply appreciate your comments and your tags. Deeply appreciate the comments of agreement, the comments of folks like pondering what I'm saying. please ponder what I'm saying. Please check out Black Alliance for Peace for some of the clearest analysis of what I'm talking about to help you start making those connections on your own. And we will keep going with the rest of the show. So let me change my little overlay. Hold on. Yeah. So, like I said at the beginning, we started this show in order to provide our people with correct analysis of this pandemic, because out the gate, particularly here in the United States, there was like nothing but like bullshit coming from the very top. Clearest example is for like the first 2 months here, they were telling us, like the motherfucking CDC and the president were telling people you don't need to wear a mask, you can't even do it right, you stupid pro. And then come to find out, masks are like the definitive factor that prevents the spread of the virus. But for 2 motherfucking months in the United States, like federal agencies were like, you don't need to wear a mask, don't worry about that shit. So that's like one example of like the just like rampant misinformation that's been spread about this pandemic, which has like drastically impacted people's ability to respond to it in a way that's going to save lives. And so we started this show not only to provide political education, but also to provide like correct information about COVID-19, because like from so-called like reliable sources, it just wasn't coming. So first and foremost, previously on this show, we have talked about like a so-called second wave that is like on the way. I want to make a correction. I think I was the one that said that. Correction. It's not actually a second wave that we are living through right now. We are seeing like surges of infections across the United States, jumping up by like 75%, 80%, 100%, all over the country. But what that is not actually a second wave. It's actually still the motherfucking first wave. We never actually successfully flattened the curve. We never actually successfully got the pandemic under control. Mass testing never happened in the United States. There was never any like kind of like universally accessible healthcare to treat people. There was never any kind of like universally accessible means of like mitigating the economic devastation from these lockdowns. All that really happened is that a lot of people made a lot of sacrifices to stay home in order to flatten the so-called curve and allow a public health response to be organized. And what happened is that public health response was never motherfucking organized. There was never a point when the curve was going to be flattened, because there was never a point when this pandemic was ever under control. And it's not ever going to be honest. So what we're living through right now is not in fact a second wave. It's still the same first motherfucking wave, and it's just getting worse because it was never under control. So I just wanted to like very clearly correct what had previously been said on the show, because it's super important to understand that like the curve was like never flattened here. The curve was never flattened. The public health cavalry never arrived. People are still living through the first drastically mismanaged wave of this pandemic, and now we're just living through a second surge. So that's first. Other thing that's very important is that we are seeing that the mass mobilizations for Black Lives Matter, for African liberation, and against police terrorism have not actually caused the predicted surge in coronavirus cases. The surge that we're living through right now actually came from states so-called reopening their economies around Memorial Day. They started saying you can start going out to eat. They started saying go ahead and go on to Target. They started saying, you know, a lot of rich people are losing a lot of money, and so we're just going to send your asses back into the breach. This is what's happening. Like, I have friends who either never got unemployment despite that bill passing, just never could access the website and never got any kind of response, or who were able to get unemployment but now are no longer qualified for it because their boss is saying come back to work. I have friends who work in the restaurant industry who are being forced to wait upon people in bougie ass neighborhoods who are not wearing masks, who are basically being forced to like risk their lives so that people can get motherfucking poke bowls. Like, it's out of control. It's out of control. And then, like, again, at no point was this pandemic ever under control. They literally just got sick of it. Rich people were like, damn, I'm losing a lot of money. I would really like to get some sushi right now. I want to fucking get day drunk, and so I would like you to go back to work. That's what's happening. They literally do not care that people are getting infected, are getting sick, are risking their lives in the service industry and these so-called essential jobs. They only care about the economic impact when it comes to rich people's checking accounts. So we're not living through a second wave. We're living through the same motherfucking first wave that has never been successfully managed. So I understand, like, I personally feel a lot of quarantine fatigue. I feel a lot of mask fatigue. Like, I feel like a lot of people made tremendous sacrifices to try to get this thing under control, and the capitalist system was just, like, not at any point interested in upholding its end of the bargain. And so a lot of people lost a lot of money. A lot of people are currently about to get evicted. A lot of people are just, like, made tremendous sacrifices in order to control something, and it just was never controlled. So, yeah. I feel mask fatigue. I feel quarantine fatigue, but super important to understand that this is not over. It's not even close to over. It's probably not going to be over like through the end of the year, to be honest. Like, we're looking at 2021, 2022 for when things go back so-called to normal. So, like, even though I am fucking tired of being in my house, even though I am fucking tired of wearing a mask, just because it's like, ugh, I just don't like it. But it's super important that we continue to do these things. It's super important that even though there's tremendous pressure from the ruling class to act like things are back to normal, to act like things are over, this is not over. Things are not back to normal. If you go out without a mask on your face, you're going to get sick or you're going to get someone else sick. So super important to continue to wear a mask. As we saw at these Black Lives Matter mobilizations, the majority of people that I went to at these marches were wearing masks, and the result we saw was that they did not spread the virus. So clearly wearing a mask is extremely important. So please keep doing that. And if you are annoyed by it like I am, remember that covering your face for extremely creepy facial recognition software, that's like in an increasing number of security cameras and an increasing number of businesses. So you can think about that. You can think about the police trying to identify you outside and not being able to because you have a cool mask on. So if you have mask fatigue, just like focus on the fuck the police part, fuck the security state part. And then also remember that it's not safe to like go about your business like you were before. It's not safe to do non-essential shopping. It's definitely not safe to eat out. I kind of feel like if you're eating out right now and forcing people to wait on you, that you're kind of a dick. Like, those people are forced to be there. They make shit money. If they try to stay home because it's not safe, they can't get unemployment, and so they have to like wait on your ass because you feel like eating out. I think that's personally fucked up to me, so I wouldn't do that. But just realize it's not safe to do that, and you're increasing the risk for you, and you're increasing the risk for them. So consider staying home as much as possible. Consider continuing to maintain social distance in public. But most important thing is that you wear a mask when you're outside for your own protection, but most importantly for the protection of other people. I understand it's been a long ass time. It's actually only been 4 months, but this is long. It's like far from over. So we have to continue to keep being diligent even as the ruling class tells us to stop caring. This pandemic is not over. It is far from over. People are going to die. People are going to get very sick. People close to you that you know. So it's very important for all of us to continue doing our part, and also to continue to organize community defense and mutual aid to support people in the way that the capital system is absolutely failing to do. So that's COVID-19 updates. Let's see what y'all are saying. I see facts. Thank you. I see Comrade from Black Hammer saying this is still the first wave and the second ones are always worse. Correct. When I say this is still the first wave, that is not to imply that the second one is not coming. That is to say that we are just seeing the worst part of the first one, and a worse second one is definitely coming in a couple of months. U.S. finna make COVID seasonal. Absolutely. It's really just remarkable to watch this unfold. Remarkable to see the so-called richest nation on earth, the so-called best and most powerful nation on earth, fail on absolutely every level to control this pandemic. They are dooming the population of this raggedy ass country to an extremely deadly seasonal virus. Like, it is never going to be under control here. We're basically just like waiting for a vaccine that's probably going to also make people sick. It's really bananas. Let's see. This is our topic. Would really like to see some organized protests against the despicable payday loan places that prey on the poor. Absolutely. One time, I've gotten payday loans in my life. I would not recommend doing that because they really get you coming and going. The interest is out of control. But I have paid them all off, most of them. And when the pandemic first started, like the payday loan place I had gone to before, like started texting me like, we're here for you. They started texting me like, if you need support right now, we got your back. Like, it was like the most predatory shit like I've personally have experienced from like a lender in like quite some time. Where they were like, oh, are you not working right now? Would you like an extremely high interest short-term loan? Like, holy crap! How many people got those motherfucking text messages? I still agree, Mary. Andrew saying, my friend is in respiratory care. She says everyone there was doing a service job. Restaurant, bars, stores, etc. Yep, exactly like I said. Folks in the service industry, in the food industry, are being forced to go back to work because state governments are saying it's so-called safe. And these people are getting sick. They're getting sick. It's so messed up. Like, they can't qualify for unemployment because work is available. If they turn down the work, they just have to sit home with no check. They can't pay their rent. So they're forced to go into work to wait on motherfucking petty bourgeois people who want a day drink. And they're getting sick. They're getting sick. It's monstrous. It's monstrous. So again, wear a mask. Continue to social distance. Remember that 6 feet. Avoid crowded areas as best as you're able. Do not engage in non-essential shit outside. Like, this is not the time to go out to eat. Did you just hear us? Service industry workers, food industry workers are getting sick from being forced to work. So do not be another motherfucking person sneezing in their personal space while they are forced to work in unsafe conditions. Stay the fuck home. Stay home. Stay home if you're able to. Also understanding that from the very beginning, there are many, many, many people that didn't have a home to go to. So when I stay home, I mean, if you are a person that has the privilege of having a safe home to be in, then you better get your ass in the house. Get your ass in the house. So people that are forced to stay out do not have to increase their risk because they're dealing with you. So that has been COVID-19 updates. Once again, going to repeat it one more time. This pandemic is not over. This pandemic is still extremely serious. People are still getting sick. People are still dying. The U.S. has never had control over this virus. And so you must, to keep yourself safe and to keep the people you care about safe, wear a mask, social distance, avoid crowded areas, do not do non-essential shit outside like going out to eat, and stay home if you're able to do so. We are on our own. The ruling class is not coming to save us. So we definitely need people to continue to keep working together to help control the spread of this virus. And also, please support community defense and mutual aid work in your community, because I guarantee you that work is like the only thing keeping up thousands of people right now because the state is not coming through. So that's been COVID-19 updates. We're still doing pretty good for time. Shout out to having an organized show. So, next part of the program that we always do is COVID-19 updates from around the African world. Like we said, it is very difficult to get news about Africa and about African people that is not straight up racist and full of lies. And so we always do this segment of the program to talk to y'all about what's going on with our people, with our land, from a revolutionary African perspective. First up, the situation with COVID-19 in Africa as of today is, I'm sorry, Erica. Well, actually, no. I will say, so Erica Ryan, comrade, or Erica Keynes, comrade from Communist, is asking, can I go out to the park? I feel like, so what I have read is that if folks are outdoors and social distance, it's actually much safer than doing the same thing indoors or, like, for example, like at a restaurant. So, like, I feel like if you're outside exercising, playing, chilling, and you are wearing a mask and you are social distancing and you are doing your due diligence to control the spread of the virus, and that's cool. That's fine. Enjoy the outdoors. Like, yeah. But if you are, like, going out to eat and subjecting people to your germs, people who do not make enough to deal with you in the first place, that's messed up. So, like, park is fine. Restaurant, to me, is not. If I hear about you going out to eat and you're my homie, I'm going to be like, you're kind of an asshole. So, that's how I feel about it. Anyway. So African world, COVID-19 updates. COVID-19 in Africa as of today. There are 335,791 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the African continent, 8,856 deaths, and 160,829 recoveries. At this point, every single country on the continent has now confirmed at least one case of COVID-19. So in the beginning, there was kind of like a slow spread on the continent. In the first couple of months, we were like, damn, it's skipping the motherland. That's kind of lit. Now it is clear this virus, where our people are not immune. Africa is not going to be spared. This virus is going to spread across the continent. And so definitely going to keep our eye on that. Also, we received news today that COVID-19 vaccine testing has begun in South Africa, Azania, alongside Britain and Brazil. South Africa, of course, has 1/3 of all of Africa's confirmed COVID-19 cases, over 100,000 COVID-19 positives in that nation alone, with over 2,000 deaths. There's been a lot of well-deserved controversy around the question of vaccine testing in Africa. A lot of people are rightfully skeptical about the ethics and safety of this kind of testing. And so we'll be closely following this story. The COVID-19, the vaccine was produced by doctors under contract with the World Health Organization. So we'll be closely following the story and the results of that testing in order to keep y'all abreast of any fuck shit, because it is absolutely reasonable to expect fuck shit when it comes to medical testing in Africa. Other things, like even against this backdrop of spreading and rising COVID-19 numbers on the continent, we are seeing the same thing that's happening here, where the ruling class and business interests are applying pressure to reopen businesses happening in Africa. So Africa's biggest economies, like Ghana, like Nigeria, like South Africa just mentioned, are continuing to reopen even as COVID-19 infections are ramping up on the continent. Ghana in particular is reopening and allowing large gatherings as well as political events, but they are also arresting regular working class and peasant African people for not wearing masks. So if you're like a business owner or like a capitalist, if you're wealthy, you got to force people to sacrifice themselves in order to pad your wallet. And if you are a poor or working class African person, one of the masses of African people, you get arrested for not wearing a mask. I just want to say from jump that it makes no sense on any level to arrest someone for not wearing a mask. It makes no motherfucking sense. Because what are you going to do? You're going to give them a ticket they can't afford because they haven't been able to work since motherfucking March? You're going to arrest them and put them in jail where they're not able to social distance, where they're not able to get access to a mask, where they are much more likely to contract the virus and then take it out with them when they're released? That makes no sense. Why wouldn't you just give people a mask? How is that an arrestable offense? How is that something that can be solved by making it a crime? Just give people a mask. Give them a mask. Why would you arrest them? Especially as you're allowing business owners to reopen and increasing the chance that the virus will be spread. It makes no motherfucking sense. It's pure capitalist logic. So Ghana is like reopening its economy and it's arresting poor African people for not wearing masks. In addition to that, there was a Black Lives Matter solidarity action organized by the Economic Freedom Fighters Party in Ghana. They tried to have a BLM solidarity action in Accra in front of like the Arc, where Kwame Nkrumah gave a speech at the occasion of Ghana's independence. And the Ghanaian government's response was to violently crack down on that solidarity action. They tear gassed people, they beat people, and they arrested the leader of the EFF, and they used COVID as the pretext. They said this was not a permitted action, and this is not safe, and so we're going to tear gas you and beat you and arrest you to show you why it's not safe. It's out of control. And actually just want to go briefly back to the political education topic, just to point out that there have been solidarity actions with the movement against police terrorism and for African liberation in the U.S. all over the diaspora and all over the continent. A common refrain is that people in Africa, like our people in Africa, don't care about us here, they don't like us. But as soon as this iteration of the movement popped off, they were organizing solidarity actions in Nigeria, in Liberia, in Ghana, in Azania, in Kenya, all over the continent. People were organizing solidarity actions and making those domestic and international connections that I've been talking about. So they are marching for us in the motherland. They are marching against what's happening to us. They are organizing solidarity actions. They are raising their voices to say it's messed up. So when do we do that for them? They are saying what the police are doing to y'all in the United States is messed up and must stop. So when do we, as Africans living in the United States, say what the U.S. military is doing to y'all is messed up? When do we reciprocate? If we're going to talk about reciprocation, when do we hold up our motherfucking end of the bargain? Just want to go briefly back to that. because I remember for years, like since I became radicalized, hearing people say they don't do shit for us in Africa, they don't care about what happens to us, blah, 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 blah. But I'm in a transnational African organization, and I have known for years that that is not true, that people in Africa show up for us every single time. So when are we going to show up for them? When are we going to show up for them? So that has been African World News, COVID-19 updates. We're going to continue to follow what's going on with the vaccine. We're going to continue to follow what's happening with these reopenings, and we're going to continue to follow the rising number of infections in Africa. That's what's up. Almost done. I'm like very proud of myself for this time. I just need to acknowledge that. Anyway, next we want to talk about what's happening here on Tiwa territory here in the U.S. state of New Mexico. We are mere weeks away from a massive eviction crisis here in New Mexico. And why is that? Because the governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, that lady, passed a eviction moratorium, which basically said for a set period of time, landlords could not proceed with evictions because many people were out of work during the pandemic, and so it was like an attempt to acknowledge that folks, if they cannot work, cannot pay their rent, and so they shouldn't be evicted. The issue with that moratorium, though, is that it was a joke. It was a joke because even if your landlord is not able to evict you, and that wasn't actually the case because eviction proceedings like still continued. Like evictions were still filed. It happened to a Comrade in New Mexico chapter. Evictions were still filed like throughout the entire moratorium, and the requirement was that people prove to a judge's satisfaction that they can't pay their rent, and then the eviction would be paused. But that whole time, even if they could prove it, even if they like successfully like qualified for the moratorium, the whole time rent was still being charged. So like people are like, okay, so sweet, you can't get evicted, but you're still being charged for March, you're still being charged for April, you're still being charged for May, you're still being charged for June, you're still being charged rent through the duration of the moratorium. Which means when the moratorium is up, which is about to happen around, like not just in New Mexico, but around the country where these moratoriums were like, filed, you're gonna owe thousands of dollars in rent. And if you haven't been working for months, how are you going to pay thousands of dollars in rent? You think these greedy ass landlords are going to be like reasonable people and say, clearly you haven't been working, so I'm sorry, you can't pay your rent, but you can just chill? No, they're not going to do that. They were continuing to try to evict people during a pandemic. So what's going to happen when these moratoriums are up, when the moratorium is up here, is that thousands of people are going to be faced with evictions, are going to be put out into the street. There's going to be a massive housing crisis, not just in New Mexico, but all over the United States, because these government officials, these ruling class figures, these states did the bare minimum and did not make sure that people would not be economically devastated by this pandemic. So we are about to live through a massive crisis that is going to directly and most devastatingly impact African and indigenous people here. And we, as radical and revolutionary organizations, have a responsibility to begin organizing defense for those folks. We have a history in the APRP of organizing eviction defense, of keeping people in their homes when banks and landlords are trying to kick them out into the street. And so that kind of organizing needs to happen on a massive scale. Because what we're looking at right now is many, many thousands of houseless families, not just in New Mexico, but all over the country. So we have been saying from the very beginning, I think from the very first episode of this show, that the eviction moratorium is a joke. And now y'all are about to see precisely what we meant. Because a lot of people are about to be pushed onto the street, and we're going to organize to defend them. And if you are a person in an organization fighting for justice here in New Mexico, then you must take up that work too. Because it's going to be extremely bad. And we warned y'all. Other things happening in New Mexico, we are seeing rising calls to defund and abolish the Albuquerque Police Department. Many organizations are signing on to this demand, saying that the police cannot be reformed, saying the police do not keep our communities safe, saying the police are sucking funds from other programs that actually do keep people safe, that actually do protect our communities. And so there is a rising call supported by a rising number of organizations to defund and abolish APD. It's actually quite dope, because I remember 6 years ago when I was like, abolish the police, people were like, she is crazy. No, that's ableist. They were like, she is too radical. I'll say too radical. People were like, that is a lot for me personally. And now fast forward 6 years, And you have like straight up liberals saying abolish the police. So that's like an indication of clear leftward movement, but it's also an indication that the ruling class is ready, willing, and able to co-opt that demand. They are ready, willing, and able to say, okay, sweet, word, we will defund and abolish the police, and we will replace it with something worse. So even though these demands are positive, even though these demands represent like leftward movement on the issue of police terrorism and how to deal with it, we also have to remember that the ruling class will pretend to give us what we want and then do some fuck shit. So if you are a person that is advancing this demand to defund and abolish police, whether you are in TOI territory or anywhere, you have to remember that you have to talk about what comes next. They abolish the police and then what happens? They defund the police and then what happens? If you, as your organization and your movement, does not articulate a vision for what replaces the police, for how we can keep our communities safe, you're allowing the ruling class the space to define some sellout shit that's going to be worse than the police ever were. It's not enough to say abolish the police. Like my comrade Erica is saying, the state always adapts. So you must pair demands to abolish the police with demands for what comes next. You have to have a clear vision for what that's going to be. You cannot just let the ruling class define it. You cannot. Look at the example of Camden, New Jersey. They wrote about it in The Nation. It was straight up fuck shit. They still called abolish the police, and they replaced it with something worse. So please, if you are a person doing work around that demand, around abolishing and defunding the police, you must advance a vision for what comes after that demand is met. You must talk about what community safety looks like and what you want it to be, and you must organize around that vision. Otherwise, the ruling class is gonna they're gonna fucking give you the old one too. They're gonna confuse you and they're gonna replace it with something worse. So I just want to put that out there that like defund and abolish is a positive demand, but unless there is a vision for what comes next, it's not enough and it's gonna get used against you. So that's that. Other things happening in New Mexico is of course the campaign to free Clifton White. If you do not know who Clifton White is an African liberation organizer doing work around the Black Lives Matter movement here in occupied Tiwa territory, who was, after the first BLM march in Albuquerque, surveilled by the police, followed by unmarked police cars, and then ambushed and arrested for a trumped-up probation violation. They still, to this day, have not explained clearly how he violated his probation because they're literally just making it up. They're just making it up. It's clear retaliation. His partner, Celinda Guerrero, organizes around police abolition, does incredible work for African liberation in the city of Albuquerque. And so they are clearly targeting that family because they are doing work to resist the police state in this city. And so they arrested this man. They have had him locked up. They moved him from facility to facility. They denied him access to an attorney. They denied him access to bond. They're not allowing his family to speak to him. So it is clear retaliation. This man is a straight up political prisoner. It is a straight up political prisoner. And the government of New Mexico, the city of Albuquerque, is hoping that people just let this go. People stop talking about Clifton White. But we know what y'all are doing. We refuse to accept it. We're not going to be quiet. We demand that you free him because he has done nothing wrong. Because he is an asset and a pillar in our community. And what y'all are doing is directly attacking the movement by continuing to hold him. Point blank. So if you want to know more about the organizing that's being done to free Clifton White, to free this political prisoner in the state of New Mexico, we definitely recommend that you follow Millions for Prisoners New Mexico on Facebook, as well as Building Power for Black New Mexico on Facebook for the latest updates on his case. People are doing work around this case constantly, every single day, and so you can keep up to date with it by following those two pages. Once again, that's Millions for Prisoners New Mexico and Building Power for Black New Mexico. So that has been local organizing updates. Erica, I agree. We got to write about Clifton on Hood Communist, and I have someone in mind that can do just that. So I agree. We got to continue to elevate this case. Comrades from all over the country and all over the world have been sharing posts about Clifton White, and we definitely encourage you to keep doing that. We want to raise the profile so much the bitch-ass mayor of Albuquerque, that's right, I called him a bitch-ass because he is a bitch-ass, has to respond. So the government of Mexico has to respond because we are not going to allow people to brush us under the rug. So yes, let's definitely feature that on Hood Communist. If you don't know what Hood Communist is, it's a revolutionary African nationalist blog where African organizers, people active in the movement, write their analysis on current events, and we publish it. Check it out, hoodcommunist.org. So we are almost done. Now we are on to the local organizing happening here in New Mexico to support folks during COVID-19. Damn, I got 4 minutes. All right, let's do this. First and foremost, All African People's Revolutionary Party New Mexico is actively recruiting right now as we speak. We do a remarkable amount of work in the community, but there's only 7 of us. We have a community defense program where we deliver groceries and supplies to vulnerable folks in our community. We have this weekly program we do every single Thursday that's getting more and more fancy. We have political education events like our weekly Pan-African film series, like We Saved Ourselves, which we did this past Saturday, and all kinds of educational seminars. We have a remarkable amount of work, and we want to do even more. We want to build revolutionary African institutions that meet the material needs of our community here in Albuquerque and that help us build self-determination and independent political power. But in order to accomplish our vision for this city, we need your support. We need you in the APRP. We need you volunteering to assist our community defense program, and we also need your material support in the form of donations. So, if you're an African and you want to help with community defense projects that are ongoing with APRP New Mexico, we need you to email us or message me or message us on Facebook and let us know. We can get you trained, we can give you an orientation, we can get you plugged into the program within a couple of days. We just need your body and your willingness to support this work. If you are not African and you want to support APRP New Mexico's community defense projects, we are always accepting donations of food and supplies, and we are also always accepting donations of cash, money to get food and supplies. So you can Venmo us at APRP-New Mexico. You can PayPal us at paypal.me/APRP-New Mexico. And you can also call us at 505-295-008-0008. Or email us at aprpnewmexico@gmail.com to get in touch with us to organize a donation of goods or to get in touch with us in order to join the APRP. So please, once again, we need you, if you're African watching this, in the All African People's Revolutionary Party to help us build up our work, to help us build independent political power in New Mexico, to help us build community defense programs, to meet the needs of our people in New Mexico. If you're not African, we still need you in an organization. The APRP is not the organization because we're African only, but there are many organizations doing incredible work here in TOR territory and all over the country that I guarantee you need support. I guarantee you need bodies. Because this problem of like a handful of people doing a lot of work is extremely common in the social justice movement. We are constantly up against a system that's like vastly resourced, trying to organize a defense, trying to organize our people to resist, and we always need more people. During this time, when we are seeing the U.S. absolutely fail on every level to support people during a pandemic, during this time when we're seeing police, even during a pandemic, continuing to murder people, continuing to brutalize people, when we're continuing to see the U.S. military threatening Venezuela, joining Africa, this is the time to get off the sidelines. This is the time to join the movement. And the way that you do that, person watching this, is to join an organization fighting for justice. Join an organization fighting to bring this system down, to free us all. This is not the time to be like giving your backseat driver ass takes. This is the time to get your hands dirty and jump in because we need your help. We need everybody off the sidelines and into an organization if we are going to defeat this enemy once and for all and change the conditions of humanity for the better once and for all. So please, if you're African, join APRP. If you're not African, join the organization fighting for justice. We need you off the sidelines. Cool. So, hold on. Let's see. Cool. So, lastly, actually, let me put it back to the donate so y'all can, you can see how to give us support what we're doing. Last part of the show, 12 o'clock. I'm doing okay. I'm going to be like a few minutes late to the work meeting. Maybe I shouldn't have said that on video. But I'm going to make it. But, so, last thing I want to talk about is upcoming events that the APRP is doing. So, first up, this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time, the All African Women's Revolutionary Union, which is the women's wing of the APRP, is hosting a panel on violence against African women and girls in the time of COVID-19. These shelter-in-place orders, these quarantines, have created a situation where many vulnerable people, particularly women, girls, and non-men, are trapped in households with their abusers, are trapped in situations where they do not have support and they're like trapped in a small space with someone who is harming them. And this is like endemic. It's like across the world where this is happening. In the United States, on the continent, throughout the diaspora. And so we're going to have a conversation about why that's happening and what we can do as Pan-African revolutionaries, as Pan-African organizations, to mitigate that, to address that. So if you're interested in that conversation, that is Saturday at 10 a.m. Mountain Time. And it'll be streamed live on the All African People's Revolutionary Party International Facebook page and also our YouTube channel. That Facebook page is facebook.com/AAPRP. Another discussion, really important discussion happening on Saturday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, so the next hour, is a Palestinian and African Liberation Solidarity panel titled The Black Liberation Movement, Centuries of Struggle. It's hosted by the Palestinian Youth Movement alongside a number of Palestinian solidarity organizations like Sami Doon. And that's happening Saturday at 11 a.m. Myself, Christian Davis Bailey of Black for Palestine, as well as Palestinian national liberation activists and organizers will be in conversation about the connections between the African Liberation Movement and the Palestinian National Liberation Movement and how we can build solidarity in this moment. Because it's Saturday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and that will also be streamed live on the Palestinian Youth Movement Facebook page. Other upcoming things is we are screening The Spook Who Sat by the Door for our July edition of the Pan-African Film Series. We got something special in the works for that particular screening, and we'll give you more details shortly. But for now, what you need to know is that The Spook Who Sat by the Door is about an African revolutionary who uses one of these moments, like one of these moments of uprisings, to start an African revolution for national liberation in the United States. It's an extremely dope movie. It's one of my favorite movies, and so if you are free Saturday, July 11th, look out for details about how you can join us for that screening and for the discussion of a really dope and also really important in this particular moment movie. And the next edition of this show, again, this show happens every single Thursday, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. We're always here. So next week, the topic of the episode will be what really caused the COVID-19 pandemic. Where did this come from? Why did it happen? How did it spread across the world so fast? Will it happen again? Yes. So, we're going to be talking about all those questions. We're going to be breaking down where the pandemic came from, and we're going to be connecting it to capitalism and imperialism, because that's how we do. So, if you're interested in that conversation, tune in next Thursday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time at the same place for a conversation on what really caused the pandemic. And lastly, our comrade Ajamu Umi in the California chapter of the All African People's Revolutionary Party has a show every single Sunday afternoon alongside his daughter, where they talk about various topics from a revolutionary Pan-African perspective. That happens every single Sunday at 5 p.m. Mountain, 4 p.m. Pacific time. You can watch it on facebook.com/Ajamu Umi. And this week, they're going to be talking about why we burn the U.S. flag. Every single 4th of July, I burn a U.S. flag with some of my closest comrades, and that's a common habit throughout the APRP. We are extremely anti-American. We are extremely anti-American nationalism. American identity equals white supremacy, so that U.S. flag is just toilet paper for us. So if you want to hear more about that and why we feel that way, tune in this coming Sunday at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 4 p.m. Pacific for that conversation with Ajamu and Shakur Umi. Once again, you can watch that at facebook.com/ajamu.umi. So that has been the show. We want to thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate all your comments and all the participation and also your eyes on us when we do this show. Once again, my name is Onya Sanu. I'm a member of the All African People's Revolutionary Party, which is a revolutionary Pan-African socialist mass political party with the political objective of Pan-Africanism, which is one unified socialist Africa. We do this show, Weekly Pan-African News Live, every single Thursday at 11 a.m. Mountain Time. And we do it because we want to provide y'all revolutionary analysis and education from a political, revolutionary African perspective. Once again, my name is Onyesanu. When Africa is free, Africans everywhere will be free. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good rest.